Hello, friends. Welcome back. We are in episode 8 of our foundation tutorial series on ZOAPIIO. In the last episode, we had seen the search process and we had implemented two pages, two separate implementations of the search. Now, let's look at the booking process. So, here is our, let's load this page again, go to the full search page. So, this we had seen how we are populating these dependent fields. And we select these values and we do a search. And then we click on one of these buttons, which will take us to the booking of that taxi. So this is the booking page. It's not the full implementation because we don't have payments and some of the other things. And the quote ID is copied from the previous page. This will identify which booking we are going to continue. And it's got two parts, the quotation ID and the estimate ID. So let's just fill in some values. Some These fields will normally be populated from the application, but we just for because it's only a demonstration. So we click on complete booking. So we are not. So it will be followed by some confirmation page and other stuff. But here we are just showing the final response, which our book service has returned. So it has created a booking. It's got an ID, and the vehicle details are blank because no vehicle has been assigned yet. This is a future booking, and we get the status as scheduled. So this pretty much is what we wanted to do in our service. One more thing that we did in our service, and we'll come back to that service, is that this would create an entry in our mid office. That means we should be able to see a record of that booking. And sure enough, we have that booking here. And we can edit it. We can see the details. Whatever values we had filled or the booking corresponded to, it's all in here. We have not captured any payment details. So if you click on the payment, you will see a blank. Similarly, there are no amendments, so you will see another blank here. Okay. Now let's go back to our booking service and see what we're doing here. Okay, so this is the booking service. It's got the same structure as other APIs. That means there is a call to the booking service, and we first populate the request. From the input we get the joint ID, which is a combination of quotation ID and the estimate ID. We split it, break it up, and set the estimate ID and the quote ID in the response in the request. Similarly, we populate the passenger details. If there's an email, we set that. If there is a booking ID, local booking ID, we put that. We create the header, and then we call the service. We get the response, and we extract the values from that and populate the response. So here you will see that width, so this is a nested width, and we are populating the response / booking. And we are copying these fields. You can see the path on the left, and on the right is the path from the response that we got. So yes, when you're doing this, you have to continuously look at the structures of what you're populating and where you're getting the data from. So here you will see there's some longer paths, like under booking, their driver assignments, there's a vehicle and make, which in our structure is just simply vehicle and make. So we have to do the correct mapping. And here there are hardly any computations. It's just mostly moving the data around. Okay. Then finally, when we have processed the data, one last thing we have to do is we have to save that data in our database. So here again, it's fairly straightforward. We there is a there's a table that we see here called the foundation booking. It's got these fields, and we populate these fields just like we are populating any other node in our schema. Table node is no different. Treat it like any other schema node. And here we give a full path because our context path points to response booking. So for this, when we say booking ID here, we don't have to give any path because it points to the nearest enclosing context. And for because we're referring to a different node, we give the full path here. Notice that in the end, we are populating some fields which are common to most entities. One is classification. This we did not discuss, but you can read up the documentation. It means it should be generally readable and writable by anybody who can log onto the system. We assign it owner, and we just chosen a default admin user. And updated acts. So here is a pseudo variable or pseudo node slash variables slash underscore now. It points to the current date and time. So we are populating this. Updated by is also admin. So we just some meta fields we are populating. If we didn't do this, then we will not be able to see the details of this booking in the mid office because it would not have the necessary permissions. So some of these things we have to do. And that's it. We just do a save and give the table name. So whatever fields we populated, it's going to update. Some of the common fields like ID will be automatically generated. So here under booking, we see this ID field. This will be automatically generated, and that's it. So it's a slightly longer service, but still, in terms of functionality and in terms of coding complexity, it's still very low. I would say it's fairly. Without any programming knowledge, one could do it. Okay, so this completes our process up to the booking. And now, one thing that's remaining is to handle the cancel button. That's a feature we're going to add to the bid office. So we're finished with the front end development and the APIs and the integration. This part we're done. Before I sign off from this episode, there is one thing which I want to talk about, and which is the DB assistant. So in our case, what we did is we used the wizard to kick off the development, and all the tables that you see here, everything that got generated for us. Now, obviously, it's not mandatory for you to have to run or create a project using the wizard. You should be able to create tables as you want and use them in your project as you want. And since the ZOAPIIO does not give you a command line access, right, and it doesn't give you direct database access through any of the other tools as well, but it provides you a tool to get access to your data. So you launch the DB assistant and you land up here. You will see a whole bunch of tables. That's because I'm logged on into my instance where several other projects have been deployed. So all the tables exist. Now here, the way you would use this is if you right click, you will get this thing called create table. Now here you can create a table, just create your table name and one by one add the columns here and then execute. And that's pretty easy. Now you can also create a table by just typing the SQL update. Now here you can type any SQL command, not a fetch command. You can't do a select, but you can do a create table, you can do a update table, all this stuff you can, if you know SQL, I mean, you would require to know SQL if you are doing this. And then you can just make updates to your database. Now let's do one thing and let's come to this foundation booking and do a right click and say select from. Now here it gives us the structure, and here we can say you can pick specific fields. In this case, we can take all. We can apply a filter, and then we can say execute. So you get the same data here. Okay, so this is a direct access to your instance relational database. Similarly, you could use other tools here. You could insert records, update, delete, and you can even import from a CSV and drop the table. So it's a pretty comprehensive access, and you should, or you're rather required to use this if you want to manage your own database. Sometimes during testing, when you are creating records in the database, and you want to see if those updates have actually happened, right? Then again, you would come here and do it. So that's a discussion on the DB assistant. There is a debugger, which is, like I mentioned earlier in one of the episodes, it's a pretty powerful debugger, but it's not available by default. Okay, so because if you want to debug your services, we need to configure your instance on a debugging enabled server or debug enabled instance of Tomcat. So you can get it done. I mean, if you need, you just request us, we will do it for you. And so this is pretty much, I mean, we are nearing the end of our tutorial now. In the next episode, we will do the cancel process. So I'll see you in the next episode.